And dialogue aims in order to reach a certain goal, which is to put down arms. There must be a laying down of arms in order for dialogue to take place. And in Damascus, a preparation meeting was held in order to lay down or to create an atmosphere for dialogue. Farouk al-Shara, the vice president, he was the one who presided over this preparation session, and the circumstances or the atmosphere weren't appropriate yet in order to hold real dialogue with the participation of all members of the opposition. And we considered that they should be present, they should all be present in order to provide the appropriate atmosphere for dialogue. After this consultative meeting was held, 18 different points were reached. Everybody believes, including the government in Syria, that the implementation of all these points has come too late, has been delayed. The internal circumstances must be appropriate, and there must be a stop to foreign intervention and the laying down of arms. I believe that the indirect foreign meddling until now in Syria has disrupted the dialogue process. The foreign intervention is increasing. The more we approach, or as we get to a political solution, at the times where we get towards political solutions, the foreign meddling increases. I accuse, and the Syrian people accuse the West. On the one hand, they say they want the best for the Syrian people. On the other hand, they are disrupting any possibility to reach a political solution. They are pursuing all efforts possible to disrupt dialogue and efforts to reach a solution. Everybody agreed to dialogue. The Syrian government, the former and this current government, all the consecutive governments agreed to dialogue. Dialogue to reach solutions. If you want a solution, you must believe in dialogue, a dialogue which leads to a consensus. Anyone who hasn't participated in politics before knows that dialogue must lead to agreements, to lead to new agreements, to a new atmosphere, and then will lead to a new government. A government and a new leadership which is responsible for implementing and carrying out the agreements. So what is said today about a transitional government is something which we all know, but it should be part of a process, of a dialogue process, the result of a process of dialogue. In order to reach such a stage, dialogue must be launched. But dialogue is being prevented today from certain sides. Dialogue must happen with a secure atmosphere, but we have financing of certain groups, of armed groups and extremists and terrorists from outside Syria, like Al-Qaeda and other groups. And so today it is no secret that, and even the Western media, they speak about this very clearly. Even the Western officials, they also confess to this truth about the presence of armed groups and Al-Qaeda. They confess to the presence of these armed groups and the takfiris, or the extremists. They themselves, the Western officials, confess to their presence, but on the other hand, they are not doing anything in order to put a stop to the bloodshed. And some of the West is even disrupting continuation of dialogue, and they are helping or contributing to the ongoing bloodshed. The bloodshed must be stopped, and they are the ones who also have a role to play in stopping this bloodshed. This is the West plot, and so all the talk we hear until now is not serious from those Western countries who say they want the best for the Syrian people. We don't feel any serious approach from them regarding dialogue. And They have no serious belief in reaching a national unity government. We are speaking about a national unity government. What does it mean, a national unity government? A national unity government is a government which is in agreement, because the other governments in other countries are countries of majority, but a national unity government is a government of consensus. We want a national unity government. A national unity government is in order to put an end to the crisis, meaning a transitional period, an interim period. As I said, a transitional period. This is what a national unity government means, a transitional government. To put Syria or enable Syria to reach the safe zone. This is regarding the dialogue and the establishment of a government. So those who are speaking about a transitional government, this is nothing new, nothing which is new out of the old logic, because Syria has announced this time and again a national unity government and a transitional government. Fundamentally, we are not against the forming of a national unity government. We are with the Syrian people, and we in this Syrian government, we didn't consider this current government as a national unity government. We considered it as a step in this direction. And we intend to go forward with the process. We intend to go towards a national unity government because this will be considered a great achievement, and we believe that the Syrian people have the appropriate wisdom and expertise to enable Syria to reach this safe zone. Regarding the second part of your question about the former Lebanese minister, Michel Smaha, I'll leave this to the Minister of Reconciliation. Let me say, with all due respect, we heard a lot of talk and we heard a lot of accusations. But there is a necessity to certify the facts of what was said. Some of it might be true, some of it might not be true. And as I said, with respect to what was mentioned by my colleague, we need a national unity government, and we are committed to the Kofi Annan peace plan or the Kofi Annan initiative. And I stress what was said before, that there are certain terrorist groups and certain extremist groups who have no leadership to resort to. So how do we hold such a dialogue with them? And I can say frankly as well that the other side is the one which is disrupting the dialogue process. And when we speak about a cessation of violence, it must happen at the same time from both sides, within a certain framework. There must be a framework to end the violence, and there must also be a plan for a ceasefire and to abandon all illegitimate arms. This is the approach we believe in. So there must be a complete process whereby arms are laid down simultaneously. But until now this is not happening. Always we stress that the other side must abide by the plans. And once again, with respect to what happened in Lebanon, I would like to repeat. Look, for example, at what happened to the four Lebanese generals who were arrested in the Hariri case. At that time, the four generals were arrested on certain accusations, and after a specific period, the four generals, after years, a period of 4 years, they were released. And now, today, I would like to say, anyone who follows up the issue of Michel Smaha, until now, the Lebanese judiciary And all sides have said that these confessions came under psychological pressure. And there are no real genuine confessions made from Michel Smaha. Everything we've heard is from the media. The confessions he made, everything he said, we read it in the media. And even his defense lawyers say that we must await the investigations and the interrogations, and we must not make leaks preemptively. Wait for the results of the investigation until we have something concrete and tangible, and then we can speak about Syria's responsibility or Syria's role. Syrian people, for example, being involved with Michel Smaha. I'm not defending anyone, but what I'm saying is that we must wait at this current period. And if you heard what the Lebanese president say, he didn't say that the Syrian state must issue clarifications. No, you must even correct your information. The Lebanese president didn't demand any clarifications from the Syrian officials. All of these talk is from the media. What I'd like to stress on is to wait for the results of the investigation and the interrogation. And nobody, no media source has the right to jump to specific conclusions. A question as well. You spoke about the dialogue and about the necessity to stop violence. If you allow me, what are the main problems in the Syrian economy? Because we've heard of that the Syrian economy is suffering a lot. What are the main problems related to this matter? The second question is, what is the role of the different social institutions, the different institutions with respect to national dialogue and with respect to a national reconciliation? And I'd like you to tell me about the role of the religious figures in the region, because we as Muslims, we are concerned with this, and also with respect to the report issued yesterday about the necessity of investigating into the responsibility of the opposition members who called for killings and for violence, which led to the killings of Syrian people. What do you think about this initiative, which we heard about yesterday? Thank you. The Syrian economic challenges are on two levels. We have strategic challenges which cannot be solved except on the mid and long term, and we must put together a strategic framework to confront such challenges. And this issue represents a very important issue, a priority. It is impossible to solve these economic challenges on the short term and in traditional way of doing things. So our approach now is to redraw, to put together a new framework for the Syrian economy, based on new foundations, which calls for a new approach in the economic ties. And so here it's important to look eastward regarding Syria's economy, to look to the east. This is not only regarding this current crisis, it's for the whole process in general. But such an approach, looking towards the east, it could solve a lot of problems which are the result of the crisis. It could solve a lot of problems which resulted from the unjust unilateral Western sanctions, which want to destroy the Syrian economy, meaning that the Western sanctions, the European and American sanctions, they closed the door of traditional export and import in Syria, and it also closed the transport, naval transport and air transport and land transport, which enabled bilateral trade between Syria and the West. Now the Syrian economy is adapting to a new economic atmosphere which takes into consideration the difficult circumstances and opens new channels, new lines in different arenas, because the West does not own the world. It's not the only owner of the world, and we have other alternatives, other choices. And these other choices are enough to provide the Syrian economy with all it needs regarding bilateral trade and importing and exporting. We are adapting to a new process. It is positive adaptation, and this process had a positive effect, a positive impact on the Syrian unrest, but it also further deepens the Syrian development in the future and Syrian growth in the midterm and the long term. Yes, regarding the other part of your question, there were many challenges which we confronted, and the state institutions did play a role, the social institutions played a role. I'd like to say that most of the Syrian people, they want to reach a political solution. And we are discussing this. All of the institutions in Syria, they are playing their role, and they have a specific vision regarding how to reach a solution in Syria. And we must benefit from the energy or from the capabilities of all the social institutions, of all the Syrian institutions. And so we are doing our best, our utmost to achieve social reconciliation, and the social institutions are playing their role in this regard. In this way, we can further enhance and put a stop maybe to the social tension, and even on the level of the personalities, the social figures who have an impact on society in Syria. They are also doing their best, and we are also trying to enhance this, the participation of the social sector. All social institutions must be involved. I stress all of them must play a role in order to improve the situation in the country. And I'd like to salute all those who are involved in this process. I would like to salute, for example, as well, Mr. Haitham al-Manna, the Syrian opposition figure who lives in Paris. Although I disagree with him in certain points, he is also playing a good role, a role which we consider positive, and he could contribute to the future of Syria. We'd like to salute Mr. Haitham and all those who believe in a national Syrian-led process, those who are not attached to a foreign agenda. Everybody knows when Mr. Haitham al-Manna expressed his rejection for foreign intervention, and we value such stances. The Syrian officials also expressed their support for such stances as well. Although there are still some disagreements with Mr. Haitham al-Manna, anyone who refuses foreign intervention is welcomed, and we welcome his stances and contribution. There might be disagreements in some details, but in general we would agree to sitting down with such figures on the table of national dialogue and discussing with them all different issues on the table of national dialogue. The roadmap, I think, is very clear, and Mr. Haitham al-Manna believes in it, and he believes in the Syrian-led process which preserves national interests. And we hope and we know as well that there are other national Syrian figures who believe in a similar approach. These are the Syrian nationalists who we want to be partners with. These are the Syrian nationalists whom we believe in dialogue with, because all this serves the Syrian interests and also the interests of the people in general and the country. All of them should play an active role and should be present on the Syrian arena, all of these Syrian national figures.
كي ركز الأمور فيما يتعلق بالموقف من هيئة التنسيق.
I'd like to stress that
live pictures there from Moscow, a press conference being held by the Deputy Prime Minister of Syria along with the Minister for National Reconciliation. Now, the Deputy Syrian PM has been visiting Moscow at the head of a delegation discussing the Syria situation, in his words, discussing the solutions to this crisis. Mr. Qadri, Jamil, Deputy Prime Minister, he said that Syria has proposed a dialogue and is supporting dialogue to resolve the issue. However, the prerequisite is the laying down of arms and the renouncing of violence. He said that the indirect foreign meddling has disrupted the process of dialogue. The foreign intervention is increasing against efforts for a political solution, that extremists and terrorists like Al-Qaeda are being financed. He said Western officials and media have already acknowledged the presence of armed terrorist groups in Syria, but they haven't done anything to stop the bloodshed. Rather, they're disrupting the continuation of dialogue and encouraging further bloodshed. He said that they have destroyed any possibility for a political solution, while they saying verbally that they are supporting the Syrian people. He said also in very important comments that the Syrian government is for forming a national unity government. He said that a transitional government should be a topic to be discussed in negotiations. We don't feel any serious Western approach, he however said, on a national unity government formed as a result of dialogue from the Western side. Syria is supporting the formation of a transitional or a unity government, he says, but that will only happen, he said, when dialogue is held, and the prerequisite to dialogue, again, which was also stressed by the National Reconciliation Minister, is for all sides to simultaneously lay down arms and agree to renounce all kind of violence. There needs to be, the National Reconciliation Minister Mr. Ali Heydar said, a plan for a ceasefire. He said that we have expressed our support for a resolution while preserving Syrian interests. And he also sent a message, a clear message in his words, to those who want to preserve Syria's national interests to take part in this reconciliation process. And he said, we're giving a message to even the opposition that's abroad, the opposition outside of Syria. We're telling them that you can come back and you can engage in dialogue to help resolve the crisis that Syria is facing now. The latest remarks being made there by the National Reconciliation Minister, Mr. Ali Heydar, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Qadri Jamil, in a press conference in Moscow. Do stay with us for more here on Press TV.